This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hello and welcome to Daughterhood, the podcast. I am your host, Roseanne Corcoran, Daughterhood Circle Leader and Primary Caregiver. Daughterhood is the creation of Ann Tumlinson, who has worked on the front lines in the healthcare field for many years and has seen the multitude of challenges caregivers face. Our mission is to support and build confidence in women who are managing their parents' care. Daughterhood is what happens when we put our lives on hold to take care of our parents. We recognize this care is too much for one person to handle alone. We want to help you see your efforts are not only good enough, they are actually heroic. Our podcast goal is to bring you some insight into navigating the healthcare system, provide resources for you as a caregiver as well as for you as a person, and help you know that you don't have to endure this on your own. Join me in Daughterhood. Loren Gelberg-Goff is a psychotherapist, author, and speaker, and has become best known for creating the powerful, life-changing program for caregivers, Take Back Your Life. Through this group, individuals learn new life skills so that they are able to live free of chronic, daily anxiety and overwhelm and let go of constantly feeling guilty, angry, and/or resentful. Her latest book, written especially for caregivers, Take Back Your Life, The Caregiver's Guide to Finding Freedom in the Midst of Overwhelm, helps readers learn ways to take as good care of themselves as they do of those they love. Today, Loren and I explore the crucial topic of boundaries. In this conversation, we discuss how to create and maintain them, how to feel good about yourself while practicing them, how to deal with others when you find your boundaries without explaining, defending, or justifying, and much more. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Loren, we hear the word boundaries all the time, especially in caregiving. But what exactly does it mean to have boundaries, and why are they important?
Great way to start, because so many people think of boundaries as being selfish or that they're not allowed. But boundaries, in truth, are limits. And personal boundaries, psychological boundaries, are a sign of self-respect and self-care. So when we don't set boundaries, we are essentially giving people permission to take advantage of us. We teach people how we are willing to be treated. So when we think about it and we're afraid to say no, and decades ago, a book came out that I'm sure people may have seen over the years, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Where did guilt come from? What were you taught about being able to say no? That's if you say no, somebody's feelings will be hurt. You're being selfish. You're not allowed. Who do you think you are? You kind of hear these messages that overtly or covertly implied, I can't do this. It's not okay for me to say no. And I've started working on the premise of, is what I'm saying or doing, does that feel good to me or bad?
Mm-hmm.
Least common denominator, not in terms of a judgment, but in terms of an awareness that Oh, if I say I don't want to go to this event, who am I feeling bad for? Myself? Because I'd really like to go and I'm saying no because I have to stay home for whatever reason? Or do I feel bad for somebody else? That they'll be disappointed or they'll be upset or frustrated or annoyed. How would I feel if it was just my choice? Would it feel good for me or bad for me? So a lot of times we can focus on, remember in the game shows where they put somebody, the contestant in an isolation booth, soundproof booth.
Soundproof booth, yes. Mm-hmm.
So if we put whoever else might be involved in that soundproof booth, and go, how do I really feel? If nobody else mattered, what would I want to do? And that's how we start to delineate a boundary.
Okay. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here.
Okay, go for it.
How many times have there been where, we have to do this, whatever, and you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. And then you wind up doing it, and then you go and you're like, well, it's not so bad. And that always plays in your head along with but I have to do this. I have to, and I'm putting have to in quotes, because this is what we've always done, or this is what my care partner wants to do, or this is what my siblings or whoever are in my life that are in and out of this caregiving situation want to do. For instance, we'll just say holidays. And my mom lived with us. Okay, well, we want to come at this time and this time and this time. And it's still a holiday. I'm still trying to have my life be as normal as possible for my kids and my husband, whatever. How do you balance that, especially when you're caregiving and you're trying to allow for all of these people to work in this thing? Nothing's good for you when you're it's like, you know what? Don't talk to me. I'm trying to do the best I can here. Just let me be with what I have to do. So how do we?
So remember the Bob Dylan song that had the line, I went to the garden party, everyone was there. And if you can't please everyone, you got to please yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So in any given situation, someone will feel hurt, sad, frustrated, upset. It just doesn't always have to be you. And when you are the one used to twisting yourself into a pretzel, making everything work, saying this way, mom will be mom will be good, this one will be good, they'll understand, first of all, just saying it feels exhausting.
Yes.
Feels frustrating, resentment inducing. Mm-hmm. So we take that proverbial breath. What's my desired outcome? And that is my favorite question in any given situation.
Okay.
And a desired outcome has to fit two requirements. Number one, it has to be what you want, not what you don't want. And number two, it has to be something over which you yourself have control. I cannot control if someone will be happy, sad, angry, frustrated. The only thing I can control is saying, here's what I need, what I want, what I think, what I feel, and acknowledge in setting this boundary and setting this limit, someone isn't going to like it.
Yeah.
And when we are used to giving in to everyone, and we suddenly or seemingly suddenly say, I'm not doing that anymore. I have to set this boundary. I'm not going to run myself ragged. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm not going to a party or a gathering because I'm exhausted and I want to put my feet up. Mm-hmm. No excuse, no explanation. Here's what I need. And so when we start setting boundaries in ways we never did before, and it's with people we love and care about, we are going to know either intellectually, emotionally, that they are hurting. Mm-hmm. So we have to understand, yes, this is a change. And how do we want to handle knowing someone will feel hurt, sad, disappointed? When we stop filling their hole with our giving into everything, they're going to hurt. And maybe by us saying no or setting a new limit, doing things differently, they're going to have to learn to behave differently as well. Mm-hmm. People tell me all the time, oh, no one in my family will help take care of mom or whomever. Brothers and sisters don't come for an aunt or an uncle. It's like, we're going to hire somebody. Oh, you can't hire anybody. They don't like that.
Yep.
We breathe. Mm-hmm. What's the desired outcome? It's not about them. So they're going to feel the disruption of their complacency, because now they're going to have to choose, oh, will one of us jump in if we don't want to pay a caregiver? If they're going to have to find other options. Mm-hmm. Is that okay? Can you live with that challenge? And many people jump in and go, no, that I can't upset the apple cart. Are you sure? What's your biggest fear? If you set this new limit, and everything is a step. Mm-hmm. And so people become afraid of doing something new and different. So they don't do something new and different and then become more angry and more resentful and more frustrated.
Right.
What's your desired outcome? How do you want to take care of you?
I love that. Yeah. And of course they're going to be upset because you've upset the apple cart.
Right.
So of course they're going to lash back at you. But how do we then settle with that? How do we then say, you know what, this is better for me, and be okay with it? Because it's different to set the boundary and be like, that's my boundary. But it's different to be okay with that boundary and not ruminate over it in your head.
And you might ruminate for a little while because it's different. And whenever we do something that's different than what we're used to, mm-hmm. there will be feelings of discomfort. And the truth of the matter is that if you do the same old, you will feel a level of discomfort. It's why you're considering setting a new boundary to begin with.
Right.
Because you're uncomfortable doing something that you've always done, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're going to do something that's different, setting a new boundary. And you go, which discomfort am I willing to live with? And it can happen on personal things too. It doesn't even have to be about other people. One woman had told me years ago that when she goes away, even for a weekend, she will pack enough things for 3 weeks. And she knows she overpacks. She knows she takes too much. And we talked about, okay, you're going away for a long weekend. Lay out all the things you would normally take and then choose half. She was unable to do that, even though nobody else was involved, for her own discomfort, the what if, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty.
Yeah.
So we breathe. We're either going to be responsive or reactive. And reactivity means we're going to do the same old thing and give ourselves why did I take all this? Why did I do this? Mm-hmm. We're either going to learn and do something that's different, or we're going to do the same old. Yes, it's a habit. I have to give in. I've done it this way all the time. I've said many times to people, don't believe everything you think. Just because you have believed it's right before, and maybe it was the right thing to do before, Maybe it was. We're not judging anything you have done.
Right.
It's just when we start to notice that we're uncomfortable, it's an opportunity to say, so what is it that I need or want? And do I matter enough to be respectful and pay attention and take a step in a new direction?
Yes. Well, and that's the hard part, right? And sometimes when we do those things, caregiving, especially being the primary caregiver, when you're trying to set boundaries, sometimes they're weaponized against you. And the people that you're setting this boundary with, again, are not particularly happy that things have changed. And in that pushback, and I've heard it before, I'm sure you've heard it before, they then will talk about you to the rest of the extended family, or basically anybody who will listen to them. And suddenly you become the bad person. How do you deal with that? How do you find your way through that?
Great question. And it comes down to fear or trust.
Okay.
People get upset and angry. And rather than dealing with, wow, I feel really upset that they decided not to bring mom to the family gathering, and what name calling may occur, what a selfish blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
We can respond to that by saying, yeah, isn't it hard to deal with change? When people do things that are different, like I said before, we're unplugging a hole that we filled for them. They'll always show up with mom. They'll always do this. We take a breath and acknowledge the feelings, not the words. I understand how upset you are that we're not doing the same thing we've always done. I get it. It's not personal. Name calling is never personal. It's always about the speaker. They're hurt, they're angry, upset, frustrated. And when people are hurt, there's that expression that says, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
Because they think that they're offloading their pain onto someone else. It's still their pain.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling sad, disappointed, frustrated. They don't want to acknowledge, this is hard for me. Oh, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever won't be at the family gathering this year. Damn it. So what's their desired outcome? What do they want to do to help the family loved one get to an event? And if they don't want to do anything,
mm-hmm.
well, they'll have to deal with their sadness, their disappointment, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So boundaries mean that you are setting a limit. And when you can determine the desired outcome, I want, I need, I feel, it isn't about anybody else, and acknowledge other people will feel upset, confused, frustrated. They will feel something. Can you handle their feelings? Their messages may be mean, cruel, hurtful, and we get to say, I hear how upset you are that I'm doing something different. Period. 3 C's. You didn't cause their hurt and upset and confusion. That's how they're choosing to handle the change in behavior or the change in outcome. Their reactions are not your fault. They will blame you and you will feel like it's your fault because, we're not going, or we're not this time. So you will feel the blame and like it is your fault. No, they're choosing how they want to their feelings.
Yeah.
Let them take responsibility for behavior. Choose the behavior, choose the consequence.
Okay. Your 3 C's were cause.
Didn't cause it, can't control it, can't cure it.
Oh, can't cure it. Okay. But then that kind of flips us back into I'm not dealing with that again. I'll just keep quiet.
Okay. So long-term versus short-term.
Okay.
If my desired outcome is to have a day off, stay home for a family gathering, whatever your choice is, your desired outcome is, and you get guilted into not doing it. I'm going to placate. I don't want anybody to be upset. So we give in. Short-term gain. It's kind of, think about it like your child, your little kid is begging for a cookie. You're fixing dinner. You know they shouldn't have a cookie before dinner, but you don't want to hear them cry anymore. So you give them a cookie. They're quiet. You feel that momentary relief if you taught them that they're going to get whatever they want because they whined or complained.
Right.
Well, adults are really no different. If they are used to you giving in to whatever they want, they will continue to expect to get whatever they want. And so you are deciding, is it a short-term gain? I'm just going to quiet them all down. Yes, we'll show up. I'll deal with my angst. Or the long term, I matter. I matter. And that's something so many people, not just caregivers, struggle with. Women more so than men, not wanting to be sexist about it, but women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and up were raised in an environment that our needs and feelings didn't count as much as everybody else's. And so when we have learned that other people's needs and feelings counted more than our own, and we're sitting here now talking about setting boundaries that say, I matter. Mm-hmm. People look at me all the time and they go, really? How does that work? That's being selfish. That's being self-centered. And I've used the example many times of being on an airplane, and if oxygen is required and you're traveling with a dependent, place the oxygen mask over your face first. And that can initially sound super counterintuitive. No, I have to make sure my kids are okay, my parent, breathe. Because the reality is, if you're not breathing, you are no good to anybody else.
Right.
And of course, at 30,000 feet, even more so, because there really is no oxygen. Down on Earth, we make excuses.
Yeah.
Someone said to me the other day that she had a day off from work and she had promised her kids she was going to take them apple picking or pumpkin picking and doing an activity and then taking them somewhere else. And I said, okay, when we finish our session, before you run to take the kids anywhere, take your half-hour breather. She had said she was really tired that day. I said, take your nap, meditation, respite first. She goes, oh, I would never do that. I said, but you can. We're not talking about hours, talking about a half hour, 20 minutes. She goes, that does feel better. Yeah, because if you're not taking care of yourself, by the time you're at the end of the day, when are you going to take that half hour? When you tumble into bed at the end of the night and go, I never did. Now I'm just even more exhausted. Right. So it matters.
Yeah.
I've been a proponent of that 20-minute power nap for decades. And my kids learned when they'd come home from school, if there was something they wanted to do, the first question they would ask is, did you take your nap yet?
Wow.
because they knew if I hadn't, the answer was going to be no.
Mm-hmm.
If I had, there was a better chance based on whatever it was, they could get a yes.
Right.
So your mood, your needs, your feelings matter.
Yes.
And if it's not something you learned through your life, as the title of Barbara Scher's book is, it's only too late if you don't start now. So it doesn't matter if you've never done it. You're hearing something for the first time, maybe it's been told to you before and you just blew it off. It's time. You matter. And since we teach people how we're willing to be treated, you have to decide how you want to treat yourself, with love, with respect, with compassion. We give to others what we want. We give to ourselves what we've learned.
How do you get back to that for the caregiver who's just so used to just doing and doing, and everything's outward? How, and you've lost complete touch with yourself. When you're in the middle of caregiving, you don't even know what you want. What you want is a time to think, 5 minutes to think about what you want. And then it's like, well, I don't even know what I want because I've lost touch with that. And I've lost touch with myself. How do you build that back?
Well, it's as simple as it sounds. It starts with a breath. When we're on automatic pilot, we're just going through the day. We're kind of robotic.
Yeah.
Just do what you need to do and then collapse at the end of the day.
Right.
When we can take a breath and ask, how am I really feeling? Because if I want to give compassionate, loving, respectful care to my loved one, to a friend, to whomever, am I willing to give the same to myself? And why have I not given to myself? And it usually starts because you've got a lot of praise and recognition for being capable, independent, thoughtful, all those wonderful feel-good things. And we like them. We like the praise and recognition and attention. And then we start getting taken for granted because, oh, she'll take care of it. Oh, she's got that. And people go on about their lives.
Right.
Using the example, and it's a hard one, somebody dies. And the first week, maybe 2 weeks, there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of care. And then everybody else goes back to their lives. Mm-hmm. And you're left saying, what about me? And you asked the question before, okay, how do we even know what we want? And I think one of the biggest questions people have, what's joy?
Oh, yes.
When was the last time I did anything that felt joyful?
Yes.
And and caregivers in particular have to learn again what it means to have a life separate and apart from caregiving, whether your loved one is still alive or not. How do we reintroduce joy into our lives? So here's a thing to consider.
Okay.
We cannot avoid stress or pain in our lives, but we can avoid joy. And how many times have you said no to something because who has time to go to a party? Who has time to go to a movie? Who has time to go have coffee or a glass of wine with a friend? We know how to avoid joy. We're stuck in the day-to-day routine, stress, overwhelm, because we believe we're not allowed. There isn't time. There's nobody to help. I can't. It was Mr. Rogers who said, in times of struggle and crisis, look for the helpers. There are always helpers. but we have to be willing to accept help. And that's a boundary. I'm allowed. I deserve. It's okay. Even if I feel uncomfortable because it's different, somebody might be upset or they won't like it. They'll give me a hard time. And we breathe. Can I handle their disappointment versus me always feeling disappointed? And that's a choice.
Yeah. How do we deal with that feeling?
That's a choice. How you choose to deal with a feeling. I'm either going to give in to, I can, or say, go back to my favorite question. What's my desired outcome? And on a scale of 0 to 10, how strong is that desired outcome? I mean, how many times do we get invited to something and we go, do I really want to go?
Right.
Or we get that immediate, oh, that would be awesome. Oh, I can't.
Yes.
Let's go with the feeling. That would be awesome. Breathe through the rejection. So that's really awesome. And that's a 10. I would love to go. I will find a way.
Yeah.
If the invitation is, I don't really want to go. I don't really like those people. I don't really care. We're not going to look for a way. So you get to determine how important something is to you. Your choice.
Yes.
People talk about going on vacation and how much prep work is required to go on that vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Is the vacation worth it? Your choice. And out of habit, we tend not to do something different. Warren Buffett's quote, which I put in my book because I loved it. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken.
Oh my goodness. Well, and that's the thing. It does become that habit.
Yeah.
It just before you know it, it's quicksand. You don't realize it until you're in it, and then you're like, well, can't struggle out of this. But you can struggle out of it, and it doesn't have to be a struggle.
Right, because we know quicksand, if you struggle, you sink deeper. So we breathe. Okay. What if everybody else is in that isolation booth? What do I want? If nobody else matters, what do I want? And once we're clear on a desired outcome, then we can enter in variables. And how much power do we give to different participants? How much of our power do we give away? Then you get to ask, do they matter more than I do? Because remember, we all know the expression, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say love thy neighbor more than yourself, but we learned that we didn't matter. And it didn't have to come from a mean and hurtful place. Again, it's generational. Women always did what they had to do, fill in the gaps, fill in those holes. So we're used to that. We were born into that. Mm-hmm. And I think newer generations, whatever they're called now, millennials, Gen Xers, whatever, they're not buying into that as much. And so you get to learn, oh, they're so selfish. Are they? Are they? Or are they doing what you have wished you could do?
Yeah.
And so we talk about resenting them. Oh, we resent them because they're doing what we want to do.
Right. Because their boundaries are much different than ours. Much different.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to, yeah, okay, I'll do this. And then you sit there and you think about it and you go, oh, I'm not doing, I don't want to do this. I don't want, We're allowed to change our minds.
Yes, we are. And recognizing someone will be upset, sad, disappointed, frustrated. You take a breath and acknowledge, yes, they will feel whatever they feel. Not my responsibility. If our real new awareness is that your self-care matters as much to you as their needs and feelings matter to them, not one over the other. And your boundaries are a sign of your self-respect.
Yes, and that's a tough one.
Because we've learned our boundaries are not okay, are not allowed, because everybody else matters.
Yeah.
But again, we give to others what we want. We'll give that. Somebody has to cancel an appointment with you. Somebody has to change a plan with you. Aren't we understanding and forgiving?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but you want to change a plan or an appointment? How hard are you on yourself?
Right.
And so that becomes that point of awareness. Yeah, I'd be really understanding of them. So what have I learned that said I can't be understanding of myself?
Mm-hmm.
And when we acknowledge what we've learned, we go, well, is that lesson valid today? And it may have been very valid in order to survive growing up in your household, to get through to this point in your life. You did things that seemed right and okay. And you're going, is that true today?
You're not 10 anymore. You're not 15 anymore.
No. I used to say, you want to come see me, come anytime. You want to come see my house, give me 2 weeks notice. Right. If you're going to come and inspect my home, is it clean, put together? Is everything put away? Give me time to get it all put together. But if you want to come visit with me, come visit anytime.
Right, right.
Well, you're allowed. Who's inspecting? Whose judgments are you living by? And are those judgments valid today?
That's great, Loren.
And so one of the topics that we do talk about in the group is breaking the ties that bind. Because we can talk about setting boundaries and talk about going through those feelings, but what are you tied to? What gets in the way?
Oof. Yeah. There's a lot, right? I mean, there just is. There just is. And it's like you're coming along with these big shears to cut those ties.
Yeah, because we hold them.
No, we absolutely do. And one of the things that you've discussed before is the I can't do that for you right now.
Right.
But I can do it, and you make it for that what works for you. It still answers the call, but you tell me about that.
Well, people make demands all the time, and we all know the difference between an emergency and just your everyday demand.
Right.
And when you can breathe, ask, is that something I can do right now? Is it something I can do in an hour? Is it something I can do next week? We breathe and offer options. And if someone is insisting it be done right away, what are our options for getting it done right away that you yourself don't have to do? And today, we certainly have a lot of home delivery options that people say, oh, I don't use those services. But you could. Even if it's something that feels uncomfortable initially, you could. And you have choices. Do I ask the neighbor down the street? Do I ask a family member? Do I call a delivery service? You have options. And so it's shifting because you matter, that it doesn't have to be you providing the service that your loved one or family members have just gotten used to you being the one who handles it. Mm-hmm. And that's a new boundary.
Right.
And the first time you do anything feels weird. And we tend to label weird as wrong or bad. But that's a judgment. And so again, it goes back to that gut feeling. Is staying home and not running cross town to do whatever, for you, how does that feel? Even though there's discomfort in the change, like I said earlier, who is it uncomfortable for? Whose needs are you taking care of? Or are you saying, let me put that oxygen mask on myself so that then I can process what really is my desired outcome?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've shared the story of a woman who did everything for her mother, everything. She ran to her mother's apartment, did her laundry, did her cooking, took care of everything. And she would, whatever her emotional issues were with regard to her relationship with her mother, she felt like, no, my mom won't let anybody else come in. My mom won't want anybody else. And then her daughter needed surgery. And she was going to be out of commission for 2 months. Oh, now her mother had to accept outside help. And once the 2 months had passed and her daughter realized, oh, I don't have to go cook and clean and do her laundry and blah, blah, blah. I can go and visit and have lunch with her. So as I termed it, the universe, even though it came as what I call a gift in black wrapping, the universe gave her a gift, forced her to set a new boundary.
Right.
So she could set that boundary. No, it's not my fault. It's not my bad. I have to.
Right.
Okay. Those moments show up more often than we realize. That someone had to be on a business trip. He couldn't go pick his mother up at the airport. So it wasn't him saying no, it was can't. So we look for those. Oh, we had a snowstorm. Oh, we had a rainstorm. The universe offers us some of those excuses that give us the right, the obligation to do something different. And then we get to sit with, oh, I was relieved because I didn't make the decision. It was made for me. Okay. If we can take that as a learning opportunity, say, so I could do that again. Oh, now I don't have to be sick to say, oh, I can't go. You know, not to say there were many blessings from the pandemic, but look at what's changed in the environment. It used to be you'd show up anywhere with a cold, with a sore throat, because look how dedicated you are.
Right.
Now you have a cold, a sore throat, a runny nose, stay home. And oh, so if you start setting a boundary by saying, I don't feel well. All right. While I tell people all the time, you don't need to explain, defend, or justify, if starting helps by saying, I'm just not sure. I'm not really feeling up to, I'm not feeling well. I don't want to cause any havoc. All right, let's start there. We can move from there. If that's your first step, notice how that feels. Oh, I'm going to stay home, put my feet up, have a cup of tea or coffee. I'm going to binge watch a movie. How does that feel? Is that joyful? You'll feel a little guilt that you made up a story. Okay, we'll deal with that. What's your desired outcome?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, because we do get stuck in the, well, I'm really not doing anything anyway, so I'll just, do that. And it's important not to fall into that trap, correct?
Correct. Because again, we're minimizing what we need and want. And it's the difference between a human doing and a human being. And that's why I say you don't have to explain, defend, or justify. Say, well, I was just going to putter in the garden, or I was just going to watch a movie. No, it doesn't work for me to be there, to do this, period.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to everything about boundaries comes back to our worth.
Absolutely.
So how do we develop our self-worth better or in a better way?
Well, number one, it has to be Do you want that? Do you matter enough to say, I have to take care of me? I'm not going to wait till I'm like at death's door and go, could have, should have, would have.
Right.
Do you believe you want to matter? Are you willing to love yourself as much as you have loved others? Not more than, not less than, just as much as. And then we're willing to take a step. Start small. And it might be, I'm not going to answer the phone at this moment. Even if all you can do is wait a minute before you call your loved one back or whomever back. All right. Can you wait that minute? Practice. One woman her mother used to call and bug her all the time on her ride home from work. So she learned to never take a call from her mother on her way home from work. She would only take calls from her mother when she was sitting in her comfortable seat in her living room, relaxed, so she could be more in control of what her needs and feelings were, less reactive. Okay, that's how it started. So one step at a time, do what you can. If you tell yourself, I want to get up and exercise in the morning for 20 minutes, whatever, and you go, yeah, I'll get up at 7 instead of getting up at 7:30. 7 o'clock doesn't work. Start at 7:25. Start with 5 minutes. Build it up one step at a time based on what's important to you, and that you know you're doing something because you matter and you're loving yourself as much as you love others.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. And that I would love just a few of those examples like that. Don't answer your phone for a minute. What can we do in those little, how do we build that up?
So I created a 2-minute meditation, and I've said to people, go to the bathroom, take 2 minutes in the bathroom, listen to the meditation for 2 minutes. If you don't have that, just close the bathroom door. Stare at your watch for 2 minutes. Just breathe. Put on your favorite song. Sing and dance to your favorite song. Do something that relieves you of that constant pressure and tension. Breathe. The original title of my book was going to be And We Breathe, because that's what I say all the time.
Right.
But I was, helpfully informed that a book has to tell you what it's about. Right. So it became Take Back Your Life. But on every page, there is that reminder statement, and we breathe. Why? Because it's amazing what a life-giving force it is to just shut your head off for a moment. Take that breath, do a reset so you can think clearly, process what's my desired outcome? What do I really want? Am I allowed to say no? And if I feel guilty, look at what I've been believing. And is what I've been believing still valid today?
Yeah, I love that. That's great. If you had any advice to give to a caregiver about their boundaries and about their worthiness, what advice would you give them?
Number one, to say, if you are even a little bit uncomfortable that your boundaries are being crossed, violated, take a breath and ask yourself what you are worth. Can you believe who I am is enough? And I deserve to be loved and supported, first and foremost, by you yourself. That's the first step. Anybody who's listening, who has an issue, concern with being allowed to set boundaries, know that just that you're feeling it means yes, you are. And yes, you can take a step to valuing your time, your being, your actions. You matter. And we deal with it all the time. If you're reaching out for support, whether it's through a group, through listening, insight, awareness, understanding, doesn't do it. Actions. What actions are you willing to take to say to yourself that you matter?
A big thank you to Loren Gelberg-Goff for being my guest today. To learn more about Loren, her book, and her Take Back Your Life group, visit lorengelberggoff.com or tbylgroup.com. Want more Daughterhood? We are more than the podcast. We are a community that offers free, nationwide, virtual support groups we call circles. These circles allow you to connect, learn, and support one another through your caregiving journey. You can find more information at daughterhood.org, where you can register for a circle, sign up for our newsletter, and find other resources for additional support. Remember to also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Daughterhood. I hope you enjoyed our podcast today. Head over to daughterhood.org and click on the podcast section for show notes, including the full transcript and links to any resources and information from today's episode. You can find, subscribe, and review us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Daughterhood. There you can discover our various circles and subscribe to our newsletter for updates. Feel free to message me on any of these sites and let me know what issues you may be facing and would like to hear more about. Or even if you just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Also, a very special thank you to Susan Rowe for our theme music, the instrumental version of her beautiful song, Mama's Eyes, from her album, Lessons in Love. I hope you found what you were looking for today. Information, inspiration, or even just a little company. This is Roseanne Corcoran. I hope you'll join me next time in Daughterhood.